Did you know that back then, people were so eager to study such mundane things?
Like the vibrations of a violin?
Yes, and even the sound of drums.
They also did the same for bigger topics like electromagnetism.
Did you know how Benjamin Franklin risked his life to study lightning?
Or how Luigi Galvani used electric charges to make a dead frog react?
To answer these questions, we will be reviewing Chapter 5 of Ian Stewart's book, Nature's Numbers, From Violins to Videos.
Just a quick disclaimer, before using this project as a reference, please be reminded that this is just a review of an existing source.
We'll be tackling the uses of wave theory, and it all started with Carl Friedrich Gauss, one of the most prominent figures in the history of mathematics.
He referred to the number theory as the queen of mathematics, as it was what started the revolutionary method of knowing the relationship between objects through quantitative means.
He also rediscovered the asteroid Ceres and contributed much more to the field of science and mathematics. But hey, let's not dwell on those parts of the story, as they are for another time.
With the existence of number theory, mathematicians were able to solve various numerical problems.
From practicing differential equations using violin strings to even inventing radio and television. It soon even gave rise to the revolutionary wave equation.
Many mathematicians soon got interested in this and learned to solve various wave equations of different instruments.
In the 16th century, the problem that the people were worrying about was the vibrating string.
It was studied and solved by numerous equations, not necessarily to improve the quality of musical instruments, but mostly to exercise themselves in solving differential equations.
They discovered that vibrating strings obey Newton's law of acceleration. When you pull it sideways, its elastic tension increases, which produces a force that pulls the string back toward its original position.
When you let go, it begins to accelerate under the action of this force, and when it is returning into its initial position, it is moving rapidly because it has been accelerating the whole time. Now the tension pulls in the opposite direction, slowing it down until it eventually stops.
Each frequency corresponds to a different configurations of the moving string, and the same string can take up many different shapes. The corresponding vibrations are standing waves, meaning waves that move up and down do not travel along the string.
The size of the up and down movement is known as the amplitude of the wave, and this determines the tone's loudness.
Soon, in 1714, the English mathematician Brooke Taylor published the fundamental vibrational frequency of a violin strings in terms of its length, tension, and density.
In 1746, Ron D'Ambert showed that many vibrations of violin string are not sinusoidal standing waves. In fact, he proved that the instantaneous shape of the wave can be anything you like. In response to D'Ambert's work, Leonhard Euler worked out the wave equation for a string in 1748.
The wave equation conveys the concept in mathematical terms that the acceleration of each tensile segment of the string is proportional to the tensile forces acting in that segment. In fact, it is a partial differential equation.
Bernoulli then claimed that the most general solution may be expressed as an infinitely many sinusoidal standing wave superposition. After a series of trial and error, the 18th century mathematicians learned to solve the wave equation for the motion of various forms of drums. But hey, that's a topic for another time.
You know, if one were to ask me, I personally think it's just a very complicated way to explain an almost everyday thing. People back then were so eager to discover everything, even going so far just to explain why an apple fell on their head, just like what Newton did. Well, that was a lot to take in for a moment. But fret not, we'll be getting into the more interesting stuff in just a bit. Because since then, the wave equation started to move out of the musical domain as it established itself as the main feature of mathematical physics.
A lot of scientists discovered the wave equation was applicable to the field of electricity and magnetism as well, starting with William Gilbert as he described the Earth to be a giant magnet.
It continued with more great minds like Benjamin Franklin, who experimented on the lightning with a kite, Luigi Galvani, who observed that electric charges cause a dead frog's leg muscles to contract, and Alessandro Volta, the inventor of the first battery.
though it wasn't until Michael Faraday that it was proven that magnets produce electric currents. With his theories, he was soon able to use it practically, inventing the motor and generator that we still use today.
And it doesn't end there. He was soon succeeded by James Clerk Maxwell in his studies, who, unlike him, was a mathematician, expressing his ideas in mathematical equations and elaborating on his studies even further.
And this is where it gets a little bit interesting. In 1886, Hertz discovered radio waves, followed by Marconi, who was the first to successfully carry out the first wireless telegraph in 1895. The television soon followed, and the rest is history.
And that's about it for the review. Though there are just a few more things we'd like to point out before the end of this video. A chapter review doesn't come without its critiques after all.
We think that this chapter was mostly very lengthy and dragged out for most of the first half. It over-explained in some parts and stated some things that weren't even too important.
And another would be the mention of Carl Friedrich Gauss, who was born in 1777, way before William Gilbert was even brought up. The latter was born in 1544, making the timeline a bit inconsistent.
We think that it would have been easier for the chapter to start with a briefer and more concise introduction, rather than a long one.
Nonetheless, it was still a very good chapter overall, and we certainly learned a lot along the way.
Well, that wraps it up. If you want to keep updated on our videos, consider smashing that subscribe button and leave a like and a comment too. We'll see you on the next video. See ya!